sort of stay positive when the going gets tough, which is something that I struggle with a lot.
I would like to say I think that is something that human beings struggle with a lot.
That looks so good. I'm so proud of you. I was just thinking that mine is...
The bottom of it does not. Like, if I was really... I maybe would, like, cover that with ribbon or something, because, like, that's all fun for us.
We have some ribbon that we can if you want. I was thinking we could, like, paint it. Well...
Or, yeah, you could paint it.
Katie was also saying that you can take tape and just kind of wrap it around to, like, even it out.
Mm-hmm. But no, I think that was a really good question. I think that one really kind of key thing for me is to not pretend that I'm okay. I remember when my parents got divorced, I was in high school, and somebody asked me if I was okay, and I was like, I'm always okay. And he said, you don't have to be. And it was like really, I was like 17, and it was a really profound moment for me in my life, because I think, you know, it's a very universal experience. Everyone goes through ups and downs. Everyone has hard times, and not that it's like, you know, super productive to necessarily wallow in that, but to just kind of acknowledge, like, I'm having a hard time, and ask the people in your life who care about you to help you through that. So if some of my stuff, I got lots of issues, guys, as we all do, but if some of my stuff is feeling sometimes kind of despairing feelings about my acting career, then when it comes up, I can go, oh, here this is again. And I know it, and I recognize it, and I acknowledge, okay, I'm having these despairing thoughts, but I also know that they are temporary, and I know that I can do these self-care things to help me feel better. And that doesn't mean that it's, like, easy, but that when it happens, I don't go like, oh my god, this is all that is true, this is everything that is real. I go, oh, my stuff is coming up again. My insecure acting stuff is coming up again. Okay, well, like, how can I, you know, like, distract myself from this, or, you know, I mean, I think the question was specifically, right, like, how do you stay positive?
Yeah.
Acknowledge that you don't feel positive. This is the first thing that I said. Because that lets you kind of let yourself off the hook, in a way, for, like, not being perfect, and not, you know, going like, okay, I'm having a hard time again.
Yeah.
And, you know, we are all gonna have these, like, ups and downs, and that doesn't mean that you have, like, failed in any way, or that anything is wrong with you.
Right.
I think it's really great to reach out to friends, because, because, like, you know, we can kind of go like, oh, I know that feeling too.
Yeah,
I feel
the more
that
you
way
talk to other, cause
as well.
Exactly, like you see people doing great on social media, but then when we were just talking, and it's nice to hear you be like, oh, I haven't had as many auditions as I'd like to be having either. It makes me be like, okay, I'm not the only one. Like, I feel and a little less crazy.
I never like to post things about, like, auditions and things, just because, and some actors do, and that's fine, but I just kind of feel like that's stuff that I do, and, you know, I also think not everyone in our business understands that, like, an audition is just a job interview, and, like, so people are like, well, what happened when you went into that, like, big audition for the famous thing? It's like, well, I didn't
I've gotten
get it,
to
but
where
that's
I
not a failure.
don't even, like, tell my parents about my auditions, because I did it first, because I was, like, very excited, which is great, but then, not the fault of my parents, but they'll just be like, oh, did you hear back about blank? And I'm like, no, and it's just, like, like, reiterating that, like, you haven't heard back about something, which truly, you know, you won't hear back about most auditions.
Yeah,
like,
you know,
you don't need to, like, focus on that.
In our career, it's so much about, like, relationship building, and, you know, and, like, it's, just because you don't get the part doesn't mean that it's a failure. A lot of things that feel like failure are not actually a failure. They're a stepping stone. They're a learning experience. So, I don't know. For me, a lot of it is just kind of, like, letting myself off the hook. But I also think that everyone needs to figure out their own self-care stuff as well.
I'm really trying to get better at that, because, like, I notice a pattern, clearly, and I've been this way, like, forever. Like, this isn't new, that when I don't have something to work on, I start to get really intensely upset, even though, like, I don't mean to, like, not validate it. Like, it's fine. I like working, and that's good. But it's also, like, I tend to underplay all the other great things I have done or have going for me and not focus on those things.
I think I'm probably not the only person out there who does a little bit of, like, timelining where it's like, okay, but by this age, I want to, or, by this time, I want to accomplish this. And to realize that, like, that's not productive. I mean, set goals.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
But there's certain things that are going to be out of your control, and if you get to a point where you're like, but I was supposed to have done this by 25, and I was supposed to have done this by 30, and I was supposed to have done this, then you're not really kind of giving yourself credit for how far you have come.
Yes.
You're setting yourself up to feel like you haven't come far enough.
Yes.
And so I'm trying to kind of, really let myself believe that things will come in their own time, and that I will keep working very, very hard. Yeah. And, recognize that, especially in our industry, that there's a lot of things that I don't have control about. What I have control about is, like, what I do in the room. Like, when I go into an audition, I have control over me, and that's it. I don't have control over the fact that they actually decided that they want somebody who looks completely different than me. Right. There's nothing I can do about that. But what I can do is go in the room and be good.
I feel like your flowers, all flowers are good, but I didn't do as good of a job.
Well, but then
down here.
I tapered with more tape.
And there's a lot of tape. Yeah, I need to taper the tape, but on the top it looks all right. I mean, I want myself to book a job and be on a show, but book this big movie, but I have to remind myself, last year I auditioned for Pitch Perfect 2 for Elizabeth Banks, and
Which was so cool.
Very cool, and I should let myself feel cool about that, and also that I did a good job in that audition. I was very nervous about it because I was having to sing, and it's Elizabeth Banks, and that's a huge deal. But that I was able to go in there and feel good about what I did and not mess up. That in itself is a victory, where as I tend to not recognize,
Well, and that's stuff that I've been working on is really giving myself credit for how far I have come and the work that I have done and the work I am doing. Mm-hmm. And to be really, and this is something that a lot, my mom's a therapist, that a lot of, people will talk about is practicing gratitude. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That the most positive thing you can do for yourself.
Totally.
In terms of overall happiness, in terms of kind of opening yourself up to not being afraid to fail, and to just kind of living a happier, better life, is to practice gratitude, is to really, and I think that's very linked to giving yourself credit for how far you've come, and say how incredible that you got to have that experience, and be good, you did really, really good. Yeah. And depending on what I'm going through in my life, sometimes that small victory is going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay, you put on clothes. Yeah. You bought food.
You did it.
You did it. There are days when that feels harder. There are days when I'm somebody just feed me. This is so hard. Why is it so hard to feed myself like a normal person? And so there are days when that's the thing where I go, I did it.
Yeah.
I fed myself today.
Being positive isn't just a natural thing.
It's a state of, it's work.
Yeah, it's work.
And it's work that everyone is doing. And some people are acknowledging it more than others.
Right. And even when I do really well, back in, 2012 or 13, when we were doing so much stuff and we went to the Emmys and oh my gosh, everything was awesome. I was very happy and positive.
Everything was awesome.
Everything was awesome. And then after that, it was very hard when all of that kind of died down. But that just goes to show that that happiness, not that you can't be happy in your accomplishments, you should, but you shouldn't base your happiness on your accomplishments, because well,
and that's something for me too that is one of my many eternal struggles. Yeah. To remember not to be looking for my happiness from external validation. Yeah, exactly. When LBD ended, I was getting hundreds of tweets a day in the height of LBD telling me how much they loved the show and they loved my work. Yes. And I didn't think that I needed it, but it became something that was very normal. And when the show ended, I stopped getting all those tweets. And I still hear from people occasionally who tell me that they just rewatched LBD or they just discovered LBD, and that's lovely. It's not
away completely.
That's gone away completely, exactly. But literally went from getting hundreds of tweets every time an episode came out to getting 1 or 2 tweets a week, which I realize is still more than some people are getting. This is right, but my point is that that was, I went through something where I felt really I had gotten so used to this kind of external validation that I forgot that that's not where real happiness comes from.
Exactly.
And that
to like remember that.
Yeah, and that like the work. Can I have one little piece of tea?
Okay.
That everyone's work.
Yeah.
Is learning to kind of, to love ourselves and accept us for who we are, even though we're not perfect, because nobody's perfect and perfect doesn't exist. There's a normal, innate kind of human desire to belong. Mm-hmm. And I think when you really come to accept yourself, you can be more comfortable with the fact that you're not for everyone, and and when kind of the more accepting you can be of yourself, the more other people will be drawn to that, and you'll find like the people who are your people.
Just the other day, I saw somebody on Tumblr say something about like I kind of was done with MK at the end of LBD, but I think I should give her another chance now, and it really bothered me. And it's like, yo, Mary Kate, like we are so lucky to be in a position where many thousands of people know who we are and like follow us on whatever, and that's great. And of course, not everyone is going to like you. That is impossible. It is so impossible. But that thought just never occurred to me in life. And now, like, it's very hard to unlearn the idea that, like, you must make everybody happy all of the time.
It was one of the greatest things that LBD taught me, because we were kind of getting this, like, immediate feedback after every episode from thousands of people that it was impossible to please everyone. Yeah. And that, in a way, I found that incredibly freeing. Yeah. That I went, oh, well, we're not making it for everyone. Yeah. We're making it for the people that love this. That love it. And if it were possible to please everyone, I think it would be a very boring world. Like, it's good that we have different tastes. I found it really freeing. I found it really freeing to go, not everyone's going to like it. And I had a different kind of, and I realize this is, like, not common, and I'm not saying I'm, like, amazing, because I still struggled in a lot of ways as a teenager, but I also kind of had that realization right around puberty, where I went, not everyone's going to like me. I just have to, like, I was always one of those people who had, like, a few close friends versus, like, a lot of, acquaintances, or, like, I was not traditionally popular. I also went to schools that were very different than... Whenever I saw, like, high school depicted in a movie or a TV show, I thought that was, like, weird movie high school. Mm-hmm. And then I met people in college who were like, no, that was high school. Mm-hmm. That's, like, what high school was like. But I went to a tiny all-girls school. There were 28 girls in my graduating class. Wow. And so, very, very different. So it wasn't, like, a popular clique. That stuff didn't really exist. But, but even, I think, kind of in, like, maybe 8th grade, I started realizing, like, not everyone's gonna like me, and that's okay.
Are you already done with your second one?
I'm kind of fast.
You're so good! I like it. It's purpley. I'm just starting my second one.
Yeah, both of mine are kind of purple.
Everybody can craft at their own pace. My tape is, like, out of control. I'm really bad at the wrapping part.
I think you just kind of have to, like, let the tape fold sometimes. Yes. And then just, like, cover it up later.
I'm trying to, like, force it to go a certain way. Yeah. Because it wants to go a different way.
I also had to force it. Sometimes the answer is to force it.
Force things to work for you. How do you feel about being a person on the internet and sometimes seeing the things that people say about you or about your work? I know I learned a lot throughout the whole LBD business, and I'm very thankful for that, because, like, if I ever am famous on a bigger level, I feel like I at least kind of, like, had a little bit of a training ground to know,
a little
like,
crash course.
Oh, I'm going to be a little more careful about what I say, or I'm not going to look at certain things. Because I just don't need to.
Yeah. I just disconnected. I just stopped reading comments. I would read things that people tweeted directly at me. Mm-hmm. And I used to, like, search myself a lot more than I ended up doing. Because, you get to a point where not everyone's going to like you. And if it's one thing to say, like, not everyone's going to like me, and that's fine. And it's another thing to read people actively disliking you.
Yes. I saw somebody say at one point that they didn't like how I posed in pictures. And it, like, ruined my day. And I was like, what the F? Like, what? What? Like, what even is that? But it's also... And then you let those things really, like, get to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard not to. And it really changed the way that I started thinking about and interacting with celebrities. I mean, not that I was, like, interacting with celebrities, but I used to sit and, the Oscars just happened, and I used to sit and watch the Oscars and be like, why would she wear that? And now I watch and I see people who have spent hours in hair and makeup with dozens of people weighing in on what they're wearing and their appearance. Yeah. And a lot of them have felt pressure to diet and do stupid things. And there's been a lot of backlash, so people have kind of stopped doing it for now. But people used to ask everyone on the red carpet, like, oh, did you diet to get here? Like, we're telling the world that you better. And even the award shows that we've gone to, like, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of money. And it's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
And that's weird. Like, why are we demanding that actors be show ponies?
Yeah.
And that just kind of made me start, I don't know, looking at those things differently. And knowing that, like, if I'm ever on those red carpets, that stuff's hard. It's fun and it's exciting, but at the same time, it feels very sort of pageanty. In a weird way, I sort of, like, look forward to someday being on a worst dress list. Like, I think I would wear it as a badge of honor. I'd be like, I did it!
Yeah, definitely.
Ideally, I would prefer to live in a world where we didn't make mean, hateful things like a worst dress list.
I know.
I took a short break, and in that time, I had a happy little accident where I was twisting the thing around, and the petals kind of got twisted in a way that started to look pretty, so I kept going, even though that's not, like, how I originally wanted it to go. And it's just a little reminder that sometimes things seem to be going wrong, and then they turn out to be going right in a way that surprises you. Kind of an on-theme little flower.
It's true. You can't, like, just dictate or decide how you think your life is going to go, especially in what we do. I mean, I never thought that LBD, I would do this little web series based off Pride and Prejudice, and then I would have an Emmy certificate hanging on my wall. I never thought I would do this little movie and then get to go to Sundance. Like, you just can't, like... You can't not let life give you the opportunities that it is, because even though you think it might not be whatever, it so often will turn into so much more than that. Or, like, I've talked about this before, but, like, if I hadn't gone in to audition for Squaresville that day, my life would be completely different. Like, everything about it would be different. Mm-hmm. Like, I wouldn't know you. I wouldn't know, like, so many people that I know now.
And something, too, about you kind of don't know what experiences are going to turn into, is that, like, we obviously were completely, like, shocked by everything that LBD became, but if LBD had not become those things, there still would have been a lot of value in that experience.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, becoming friends with you and learning so much more about myself as an actor, and just having all of those experiences. Like, there was value in that outside of anyone ever seeing it and responding to it.
Is there anything else you want to talk about or plug while you're here?
I just want to remind everyone to be kind to themselves.
Oh, that's so nice. Plug positivity.
Well, I think it's not something that, like, we necessarily kind of talk about enough. That just, be kind to yourself, because everybody is just making it up as they go and figuring it out, and anyone who tells you differently is just lying because they're embarrassed about the fact that that's what's true.
Yeah.
And so be kind to yourself, and then be kind to others, because they're all going through the same stuff that you are.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
That's what I want to plug.
Wow, Ashley, you're being such a great person today.
And watch Spore.
Normally, do that.
Normally I'm a terrible monster.
Normally you're a terrible person because you always win at Cards Against Humanity.
I do.
I don't know how I feel about this flower. I'm not super
pleased.
My other one that I made, which is it was kind of shorter, and this one is a little more like a tulip bulb. So we've made our flowers, and now we are going to paint the masking tape green, so it will kind of blend in, which is just something I just decided to do just now, so hopefully it'll work. And then we'll have cute little flowers to put up in our homes that will not die.
They'll never die, unless my cat gets a hold.
Oh no! Speaking of, how's your cat?
She's super great.
Somebody was wondering about, well, they asked our first pets, but I'm curious how...
I'd be happy to tell that
how
story
Purdy got her name.
Purdy, short for Perdita, got her name because I found her when I was in grad school at the Old Globe in San Diego. That's a program that emphasizes Shakespeare a lot, and I found her outside the theater when I was coming out of a show one night at like 11 o'clock at night. I heard this like plaintive little what? And I sat down on the curb, and this tiny scraggly little mess of a kitten just came and jumped in my lap immediately and started purring and rubbing her little flea-infested body all over me. And ended up taking her home. And I just knew she had to have a Shakespeare name. And so I was kind of running through all of the Shakespeare heroines, and I was kind of going, Juliet and Marina and things, and just feeling kind of uninspired. And then I thought, Perdita from The Winter's Tale, which means lost. And she is the lost princess who was then found again, and I had just found her. I know this is a character that you've also played.
I was about to say, fun fact, I have played Perdita.
And I started to cry. And I was like, that's your name. I call you Purdy. And there's there's the pun of Perdita.
Perdita.
And, even though I don't really call her that, but I mostly call her Purdy, so she has kind of a fancy full name and a silly little nickname.
Along those lines, too, Harry Spore is maybe perhaps based off of that as well. Yes. And your character is named Cal, so people can draw their own conclusions. That sounds like, okay. Yeah. We might try this other green color and see if it's a little more matching the color. The whole thing.
Yeah. I don't know. We're just experimenting.
Let's just do it. I'm tempted to, but then how am I going to hold it? I guess I could hold it at the top, huh?
You're going to get paint on your hands.
No! Paint on my
That's how I'm
hands.
probably going to do it.
You really like the cute little straw.
I do like the straw. I'm probably going to do it differently on every one of them.
No, that's better. That's nice. That looks better. I'm going to do that, too. Rosie, my cat,
Similar kind of.
is named from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Because of course she is. And I pretty much picked Rosie because the choices were Arwen, Éowyn, Galadriel, or Rosie. And there you go.
First question is about our first pet and how
Our
they got
first
the name. And
pets.
I would kind of also like to tell that story.
Let's hear it. I also have a fairly decent.
My first pet was a cat that I got when I was 4. And she was a little kitten. And she was a calico. And I was 4. So I named her Rainbow. Because she was so many colors.
Aw, that's really cute.
And Rainbow lived to be 20.
Oh, mine.
So I was
That's quite long for a
24
cat.
when my first pet died.
Aww.
Actually, her daughter, she had a litter and we kept one, died first because she got cancer. So I was maybe 21 when my first pet died. When I experienced my first pet death. But then I was 24 when the first pet that I had ever gotten died, which is kind of crazy.
It was crazy.
It was something I really thought about because it was actually later that year that I adopted Perdita. Something that I don't know how to let this dry.
No, I just kind of gingerly laid it down.
I thought that when I adopted Perdita, I was like, if you live to be 20, I will be 44 when you die.
I have thought about that as well with Rosie.
And it's kind of crazy because my life will have changed so much by the time that I'm in my 40s, you know, and like.
I don't want to think about Rosie dying. It will happen someday, but it makes me very sad.
It's one of the saddest things about getting pets. It's one of the things that I kind of, like, don't even know how dog owners deal with because dogs typically have much shorter lives, and I've always been a cat person, is that sometimes dogs only live, like, 8 years.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's terrible. Like, how do you bring something into your life and love it so much knowing it's only going to live for 8 years or 10 years?
My first cat was a cat that my mom had before I was born. His name was Sulu. Like Sulu in Star Trek.
Obviously.
I couldn't say that for a large part of my life, so I called him Susu. But he died when I was 14, I believe, because he got some terrible kidney problems and stuff, and that was very, very sad. And my mom didn't want to get another cat for a while, but we got Georgie when I was, I think, around 17. But he already had that name from the shelter, so we call him King George. I think that does us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
I had such a good time crafting with you.
I did too. And if you made these yourself at home, let us know how they turned out. Ta-da! Thank you, Katie Campshure, for being our craft consultant.
And Katie, this shirt is from Anthropology.
And thanks so much. People can find you on Twitter at the Ashley Clem, but they probably already know that.
Yeah, and Same for Instagram and
Great.
different for Tumblr, but you figure it out.
And you'll see us very soon in Spore and Muzzled.
Yeah.
Yeah! Thank you so much!
Yay!
Until the next Craftversations.
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 Yeah.
Hello! Welcome to Craftversations Volume 2, where our lovely guest this week is Ashley Clements!
Hello!